Hello, welcome to Challenge Day 2, our Go Live challenge to activate your voice. I'm going to get started here. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday. Hope you had a good week, that you are ready for the weekend. Whatever you decide to do, whether it's go out, stay in, hey, that's your business. But just, I'm glad y'all came and spent your Friday with me for a few minutes. Welcome to the challenge. If you're here, comment below. I want to see some comments. I want to see the names and who's with me. I want to know who's taking the challenge. Who was brave enough to take on the Activate Your Voice Go Live challenge? Who's with me? I'm gonna jump in. I'll do a quick recap. If you're just joining, welcome. If you were with me last night, you know I kicked off day 1 of the challenge, and all of this started because you guys said I am afraid to go live and speak and tell my story. And I just don't believe in carrying fear for anything. And so a part of activating is to activate your story and overcome your fear. And so that's what we're going to get to. This challenge really came as a product of one, me being consistent. So you're part of this, is you guys being on a journey with me of consistency and transparency. Those are the two core things of my business right now. Ebony, hey, thank you for joining. I'm glad you jumped right on. I saw you commented on my question. I posed a question yesterday to my Activation Nation, to my Facebook community, and said, hey, how many of you have a fear of speaking? And I was very surprised how many people were like, yeah. I mean, I knew it would be some, because they say speaking, which whether you're talking about virtually or live at an event or any capacity, having to speak and share and tell your story does not flow naturally for everybody. And that does not, and let me say this, your ability to speak and tell your story has no bearing on how gifted you really are. You may be gifted in your area, whether that's in your craft, in the service, the skill or trade that you offer. You are absolutely still skilled in that. The reason why the story is a necessity is because stories bring connectivity. Everybody has a story, but not everybody has your skill or your service. The other reason why it's important is that people learn through stories. Okay, it's no coincidence. Jesus used stories in the Bible. That's how we learn Bible verses and Bible stories. It's no coincidence. Some of the greatest lessons are taught through books, because books do what? Tell stories. So I want to get to the heart of you telling your story, or to the core of you telling your story. So I want to see who's with me. Just give me some hearts, some likes, say hello, speak to me, I'll speak back to you, and then I'm going to go ahead and get right to it. So the heart of the challenge is actually based around me coming up with a strategy to help people tell their story. And so just to bring it back up for you, I'll go back to the beginning here. This ebook that I'm launching at the end of this challenge, I'm going to launch this ebook as a guide for you to continue a formula for telling your story. Yes, there is a formula to telling your story with authenticity, consistency, and transparency. Okay. Now, some of you may be looking at this saying, well, wait, I don't know if, I'm not in sales, I may not do sales, but listen, if you have a gift or product, even if you work for someone else, in some capacity, you're selling their product, good, or service. It's just in there. And then to humanize. So that's actually tonight's focus. If you're just joining the challenge, quick recap here. Every day, there's 5 ways. So that's why the challenge is 5 days. Every day, I'm going to cover a new way to activate. One of the ways to activate. There are 5 of them. Okay. So last night we talked about the first quote. So the book is loaded with quotes and teachables, just things to help you remember the points. Your story is one thing that makes you different from everyone else. And this is my quote. I live by this. If I lived it, I can tell it. Somebody type that in the comments. If I lived it, I can tell it. That's such a powerful statement because what that says, and anytime I kind of get in that nervous space where I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell that or that might be too much, I know that I'm truly free from something when I can start talking about it without emotion. That's my key. And that's the thing that people connect to. If you can go back to the root of why you wanted to do hair, what was it? Was it, hanging out at the hair salon with your mom? Was it looking at hair magazines and imagining having your hair a certain way? Was it a loss? I have a hairstylist friend in Charlotte who suffers from alopecia. So her story was a story of loss and wanting to give confidence back to others. Hey, Donji, yes, you got it. If I lived it, I can tell it. What's your story? What's your activation story? If you were with me yesterday, some of you heard my activation story of how the activation hour even got started. It did not start as coaching. And to go even deeper, yesterday I shared with you that my activation story occurred through helping and serving and coaching youth. And the kids in my group held me accountable and said, no, Miss Melissa, you can't tell us to write and speak if you won't write and speak and tell your story. So those kids got me together and said, you have to tell your story. But guys, I really sat with it today as I was preparing for time to bring you day 2. I realized, wait a minute, at the essence, at the core of who I am, I have always sat at the feet of people and wanted to hear their story. So when the activation hour started as a radio show back in 2017, it wasn't really about the platform. I wanted a creative way to interview some people who I absolutely admired, who were influential, who had these amazing activation stories, meaning they overcame some great triumph. And we all have these. Everyone has an activation. Somebody type that. Everybody has an activation. They are not reserved for these special people in the world. We all have an activation if we tap into it. So tonight, what I want to get to is for us to. I want to make sure you did day 1. So if you're on your catching up here, day 1 was to vocalize, and the challenge for day 1 was to open your mouth and tell your story. Most of my coaching clients, if not all of them, really do struggle with, hey, they're really good in their craft. They either are coaches themselves or have other businesses and they serve well in what they do. But it's something about social media, especially now because we have been just reserved to only contacting each other this way, whether it's through Zoom, FaceTime, whatever medium you use. That could be stressful for someone if they are not comfortable with the camera. They're not comfortable with, well, hey, I don't know, I don't see a person in front of me, right? Or they can't talk back to me. So that's why you want to get in the habit of vocalizing. And also yesterday, remember I told you that it doesn't matter if you have an audience of 1 at a dinner, at a cocktail hour, a networking event, or audience of few at a party, or audience of hundreds speaking on your stage. Doesn't matter. Your practice telling your story. Okay. So yesterday's challenge, if you want to catch the replay, you can go to the Activation Hour on YouTube. I'll drop the link for you and you can download challenge day 1 and watch the video. Okay. And the challenge was to write your story in 2 to 3 paragraphs on why you started your business or chose your job. Because I understand not everyone in my audience is an entrepreneur, but you're aspiring to purpose. If you're following me, that means that, hey, you're aspiring to live a life on purpose. So write that story. Now, day 2, y'all ready? You locked in and you loaded? All right. Day 2, humanize to monetize. Humanize to monetize. So I told you as I sat and got ready, I realized my story was deeper than what I started to tell yesterday. And so the reason why I'm so passionate about this challenge and about helping other people speak and voice their stories is because as a child, I grew up around a lot of elderly people. I was raised by my grandmother and my great grandmother. And my favorite thing, and if you're from the South especially, you know this, it was kind of like that children are to be seen and not heard. And so you kind of sat and listened to their stories, and you sat and heard about where they grew up in the country, or you sat and you heard about their dreams. And especially this time, because I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, so you would hear about great leaders. They would talk about, times of old, or the good old days, right? People talk about the good old days, and that fascinated me. They would the elders in my family would talk about family members who were long gone, and these were radical characters. So now the question is, who is your radical character in your story? How do you become your own radical character? So I want to give you a demonstration to help make my point. And I promise you, this literally came to me a couple of minutes ago. Well, before going live, I wanted to grab a snack, and I went to the kitchen to get an apple. True story. And this, I'm going to give it to you the very same way that it hit me. Okay. So I'm going to make a little space here. And as I was grabbing this apple, this is you. This is all of us. This was me. I don't know about you all, but I was the shiny apple. This apple is perfect. It's not brown. It's not dented. Let me get in my camera here. It's perfect, and it's shiny. What it says, shiny apple. It's clean. No spots or blemish, right? Well, I wanted everything to look perfect and that I had it all together. And what I realized was that people were only seeing the shiny apple, and people will buy you as the shiny apple if everything looks good, everything looks perfect. Oh, it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But here's what I learned. People will buy the shiny fruit, but they come back for the meat and the core. Because with apples, I'm cutting this apple because I want to make my point. With an apple or any piece of fruit, all fruit looks different, but at the core, they all have seeds. Every piece of fruit has the outside flesh, which looks perfect when it's in season. So it looks like it has it all together, right? But then at its core, there's the meat or the flesh, and there's the seeds. This is what people come back for. People will buy the shiny outside, but they believe in your core. They believe in the fruit you carry. They invest in the seeds of your business. This is why telling your story is important. So day 2, humanize. Humanize to monetize. So one of the statements I put on this particular page of the book says, your people will know your voice and be drawn to your message because they see themselves in you. You don't see peach trees growing on apple trees because they're not the same fruit. You attract your fruit. So if you're struggling in any area of your business or even in your career, don't be misaligned with your fruit. Okay? They either see you, they see who they are through you. People need to hear your story because it's not about you. It's not about you. Guys, that was one of the harshest realities, because for years I said, well, that's my story and that's my trauma and that's my hurt. And I toted that story around on my shoulder like I owned it, and I wasn't releasing it to anybody. But it wasn't until, and this affected my business greatly, because I can coach and teach and train and usher other people to greatness. But they said, well, wait a minute, Melissa, how did you get here though? That people they don't want to just know where you are. They want to know how you got there. They don't want to know that you're just a piece of fruit. But what are the seeds? What are the seeds? What were the seeds of how you educated yourself? Were there seeds of someone, a mentor who planted into you? Were there seeds of how you invested into professional development, your training, your schooling? Tell these stories. And one of the people in the group said, hey, I really just struggle because I don't know if my content is good enough. And the truth is, when you go back to your core, you'll always have good fruit. Go back to the activation story, the original story of why you do what you do. Okay? So today's challenge is humanize to monetize. Today, I want you to share your story that you wrote yesterday. Yesterday, you were supposed to write it. How many of you wrote your story? Okay? I see a few people say, yeah, I started, or it's important. And you won't have just one story. That I have a whole list I keep on my wall of different activation stories. And those stories are what I draw upon when I need content. I use those stories as my caption, as my subject line, as my topic, because people can relate to the core of your story. All right. So you want to share your story. That you wrote on day one with your team or a business buddy. You have to share it. So if you're not comfortable going live just yet, pick one person, a friend, a family member, FaceTime somebody and just say, hey friend, I just need 5 minutes of your time and I just need to get this out. I just got to get it out and tell it. All right. We're not going to keep the seeds hidden. We want to get to the core and tell your story. Also, you want to ask them 2 questions when you tell the story. I know that's the scary part, is getting the feedback. It's like, oh, I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to know. That's scary. It's scary to avail yourself and be transparent. But remember, like I said, you lived it so you can tell it. So the opinions of others really don't matter, and you really only want the people who you resonate with them, and they understand your story. So the 2 questions you want to ask them, if someone could drop these for me in the comments. Number 1, can they relate to your story? Can they relate to your story? You want to ask them that question. The second thing is, how did the story make them feel? Not what they think, but how did it make them feel? That's really important, because people really do make decisions, purchase decisions especially, based on emotion, not logic. Okay? And so that emotional connection will let you know that they trust you. People gain trust when there's that emotional connection. Okay? That's really important. So again, challenge day 2. You want to share your story that you wrote on day 1. All right? And now on day 2, you want to share it. Call up a friend. You don't have to go live yet. That's coming, because I'm looking for you guys. I'm in this. I'm committed to go live with you. We have 3 more days now. Today is day 2. But you have to practice it. Get it out. Get your reps in. If you're on my email list, I said that in my quote. I said the only difference between me and you is that I get in my reps. Just like someone who works out. The only difference between your summer body and your quarantine body, or your beach body, or your winter body, is your reps. How many workouts did you do? How many push-ups did you do? How many jumping jacks did you do? Well, then my question is, how many people know your story? How many times have you told it? Do you know it by heart yet? What was the emotion? What emotion do you want people to feel? Get your reps in. That's what this is about. All right, so guys, thank you for joining day 2. I'm going to check back. A lot of you did really well. I promised you yesterday I would go out to your pages. I looked at the comments from the Activation Nation community, and you did really good. Some of you were brave, and you went for it on day 1, so I applaud you. So day 2, get in your reps. It only grows from here, because by the end of the challenge, the goal is to activate your voice and tell your story. So if you want continuous coaching on telling your story, our mastermind coaching program releases in May. So we're certifying coaches. If you are a coach, or you believe that you have the capacity to be a coach. People come to you for guidance, advice, accountability. You're a great accountability partner. Well, you might just be a coach, and I'd love to have you on my team of activation coaches. And we are doing our mastermind 6-week training starting in May. So I just dropped a link for you, family. Tonight, day 2, humanize to monetize. You got to tell the story and get to the core. Got it? All right. Check the replay on my YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to my email list on theactivationhour.com. I'm your girl, Coach Mel, Melissa D, and I will see you tomorrow night, day 3, for more of the Go Live Challenge. See you later. Bye.